Hello students, today we continue the gametogenesis. Last class we discussed about the spermatogenesis. Now, oogenesis. In that one, oogenesis. In this third subtopic, that is 3.3 under. What is the major difference between spermatogenesis and oogenesis? Spermatogenesis is a continuous process, whereas oogenesis is a discontinuous process. But the time takes place. The completion of spermatogenesis, it takes place 74 days under. Whereas oogenesis related to human being, it completes several years, averagely 12 to 13 years for completion of this one. Apart from this one, spermatogenesis, it takes place within the testes. That means multiplication, growth, maturation, everything takes place within the testes only. That means primary sex organ. Related to, in female, primary sex organ, that means ovary, it involves multiplication as well as growth phase. Then half of maturation. Then complete maturation, it takes place beyond the ovary. That means oviduct, otherwise we call it as fallopian tubule. So remember, in spermatogenesis, both multiplication, growth, maturation involves within the primary sex organ, that means testes. Whereas in female oogenesis, it may not completely take place oogenesis within the ovary. The half of the maturation, it involves beyond the ovary, that means oviduct and all. That too after entering of the spermatozoa. Then only it completes in its oogenesis and all. Then what is the meaning of oogenesis and all? Formation of female gamete. That means formation of haploid female gamete, that means ovum, from diploid mother cell. That means egg mother cell. That is called as oogonia of ovary of female organism. That is called as oogenesis. Very simple, formation of matured egg cell from ovary. That means the sex organ and all. So that is called as oogenesis. Last class also we said, once again we recall the formation, development of haploid female gamete, that means ovum, from a diploid mother cell, egg mother cell, that means oogonium of ovary of female organism. That is called as oogenesis and all. Then when it starts oogenesis and all, normally spermatogenesis, it begins at the age of puberty and all. Whereas in female organism, oogenesis, it begins at the age of fetal stage only. Normally it begins that fetal stage. It starts the oogenesis at the age of fetal, inside the womb of mother. If it is female baby, there and then only it begins and all. Then it completes several years up to puberty. Whenever it begins puberty, then it completes. So minimum 12 to 13 years it takes place and all. But that is important. When oogenesis begins at the age of fetal stage only, that means embryonic stage only it begins and all. Whereas in male and it begins and ends during puberty stage only. But whereas here it begins during fetal stage, that means embryonic stage only. Then primordial germ cells, here primordial germ cells, that means underdeveloped. So primary germ cells whenever at the age of 1 month of the baby, primary germ cells, primordial germ cells, otherwise we call it as that primary germ cells, it is present 1700 cells present at the age of 1 month of the female baby and all. Then gradually it increases and all. Then oogonia cells, it is present 6 lakhs at the age of 2nd month of female baby and all. Similarly, in the same oogonium, it is present at 7 million at the age of 5th month of the fetal and all. From here, it ready to atresia, ready to degenerate. How many number? That many number may not reach to the up to the puberty stage and all. Then after completion of 5th month, the fetal stage of inside the womb of mother, if it is female baby, then it begins for atresia, that means degeneration of that particular oogonium cells and all. Then from here, it begins atresia. Then whenever at the time of birth, in this at the time of birth, this oogonia, it converts into that means primary follicle. These primary follicles, it is present at the time of birth, that is 2 million. 2 million is present. That is primary follicle or related to oogonium, it is present 2 million at the time of the birth. Gradually it reduces and all. So after birth, so each and every ovary, it contains 2 million oogonium. That means it related to primary follicles and all. 2 billion. That means 2 ovaries are present. Totally 4 billion that ovarian follicles or oogoniums, that mother cells are present and all. In this one, after birth, neither formed nor added. Neither formed nor added after female birth and all. So after delivered in the mother as a female baby and all, then whatever the number of primary follicles, whatever the number of oogonias are present inside the female baby and all, that number only it must be continued, even though some of the number it degenerated and all. Neither formed nor added after birth and all. That is very important and all. So at the time of birth, 2 million that particular oogonia or primary follicles are present and all. 2 millions each and every ovary. Like the total 4 millions are present and all. From here, from birth to puberty, from birth to puberty, few more it must degenerate and all. How many it degenerated? It degenerated maximum whenever it reached to the puberty stage and puberty age, it is present to 60,000 to 80,000 the primary follicles present each and every ovary. So this number is very important. So what is the number of primary follicles? It is present each and every ovary in a female baby and when it reaches to the puberty age. Puberty age means it begins at 11 or 12 up to 14 years it is present. Whenever it reaches, it is present each and every ovary. Then in that one, whenever it begins, for every 500, only one it must mature and formation of oogenesis and all. So finally, after completion of this particular female, that reproductive, that capability and all, that means whenever it begins, that particular at the age of 12 and all, up to 45 to 50 years and all, then it stops. That maximum it will be released 450 egg cells and all. So throughout female human life and all, how many number of egg cells it ready to release and all? Total 450 ova, 450 egg cells and all. Remaining, actually each and every is present remaining, it will be degenerate monthly, yearly, degenerate and all. Because of that specific cyclic changes takes place only female organism. The name of that cyclic changes we called as menstrual cycle. It controls the pituitary hormone as well as ovarian hormones and all. Then before that one, in this at the age of puberty 60 to 80,000, that primary follicles it is present and all. Then if you observe in diagrammatically, that means the flow chart and all, it is present related to oogenesis and all. This is the primordial germ cells, PGC. Already said PGC always becomes into the diploid condition. What is the number of chromosomes? 46 chromosomes. It is the 2N, that means diploid. Total number 46 chromosomes and all. In this one, first it begins with the multiplication. In this multiplication phase, through mitosis, it will be forms into the oogonia. It forms into the oogonia. This is multiplication. In multiplication phase, when it begins at the age of fetal stage, at the age of embryonic, just now I said. Then after mitotic, several mitotic division, maximum number of that oogonia are present and all. It is also, because mitosis, it is also diploid in condition. Diploid, the number of chromosomes are 46 only. This is the multiplication phase. After multiplication, then growth phase it is present and all. Then in that growth phase, it will be enlarged and all. The growth phase, this is we called as primary oocyte. In this growth phase, here also several multiplication, then it forms into the, for understanding any one we have taken here. Here also in a next particular period of time, one more oogonia ready to induce and formation and growth, and it takes place the particular oogenesis and all. Or just now I said among 500 with the help of hormonal inducers, with the help of hormonal motivation, one only it undergoes to the specific oogenesis process and all. Then primary oocyte and all. But this growth phase will be very long period. Related to spermatogenesis, it is a very short period, whereas oogenesis in that growth phase very long, several years and all. So whenever it enter into the oocyte, primary oocyte and all, then it will be arrested. It will be arrested in one among the reductional meiosis 1 prophase 1. In that primary oocyte, up to primary oocyte, from oogonia to primary, that related to primary oocyte, it may be reaches 12 to 13 years. It reaches to the 12 to 13 years. That means complete maturation. What I am telling, complete maturation of primary oocyte, it takes place maximum period of time and all. Even though it arrested in meiosis 1 prophase 1, it arrested. Why? Because actually meiosis it involves after primary oocyte, but here it is arrested here only. Then later it will take place, but in this growth phase related to Drosophila, if you observe, only 3 days. If you take place into the hen and it takes place 6 to 13 days only. Whereas related to the frog, it involves 3 years. Related to 3 years, that particular group. Whereas human being, 12 to 13 years and all. That primary oocyte. Then one among the oogonia, here multiple maximum number is there. Each and every 500, only one it undergoes to the that particular way, because spermatogenesis is very simple and easiest, but in oogenesis it will be complicated. Why? Because in growth phase it is not immediately undergoes love. For every 500, only one is ready to continues that particular oogenesis process with the help of follicle stimulating hormone and all. In this one, the rest of oogonia, it forms into the follicles. So primary oocyte, then it forms into the follicle. Granulosa membranes are formed and all. This is the granulosa membrane. This is we called as primary follicle. Then it forms into the one more granulosa membrane. This is we called as granulosa membrane. Then one more layer of granulosa membrane. One more layer. Multiple layers are formed and all. This is we called as secondary follicle. Then it forms related to one more layer. Along with this particular layer, there is a specific antrum, fluid filled substances. Multiple granulosa layers are formed. This is we called as tertiary follicle. So, after formation of primary oocyte, that is a premature one, then rest of granulosa, rest of oogonia cells, it forms as a granulosa membrane. Only one membrane, that is a primary follicle, two layers, secondary follicle, multiple layers, that is we called as a tertiary one. Apart from this one, antrum, the fluid filled, it is also present. Whenever it reaches to the tertiary follicle, it complete in its meiosis, one cell division and all, until it is arrested. In prophase 1, it is arrested. After formation of meiosis, after formation of primary oocyte, immediately it ready to start meiosis 1. But meiosis 1, already you know prophase 1, prophase as well as metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1, then meiosis 2 and all. In prophase meiosis 1, prophase 1, it is arrested. Whenever it reaches to that particular puberty and all, then it undergoes that already it is primary follicle stage and all. Then secondary, one more granulosa membrane, then tertiary, which are the indication antrum it is present in, that is a tertiary. Then mature. Whenever formation of tertiary follicle, it completes in its particular meiosis cell division. Then the matured follicle, then we called as that matured, that is we called as Graafian follicle. This is we called as matured follicle. Graafian follicle otherwise we called as matured follicle. In this Graafian follicle, here if you observe, different types of the membranes are present. Outer, that is present theca externa. The inner side, it is present theca interna. Then membrane granulosa membrane, membrana granulosa. These membranes we called as membranous granulosa. One among these membrana granulosa, this is we called as antrum. These granulosa membranes, it forms into the cumulus, the cumulus operus. Then towards that one, granulosa membrane only, towards this particular layer, it is formed into it is corona radiata. Corona radiata, inside this one, zona pellucida. Zona pellucida. Inside it is actually it is egg cell. It is egg cell. It represents as this one secondary oocyte. So, exam point of view, which one represent matured follicle? They give options: primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, Graafian follicle. Your option will be the Graafian follicle. So primary oocyte only, while formation of granulosa membrane, one granulosa membrane primary follicle, two granulosa membrane secondary follicle, or multiple granulosa membrane with the antrum, with the cavity fluid field, that is we call as tertiary follicle. Until this one, it completes meiosis cell division. Then matured one, we call as Graafian follicle. Whenever reach to the Graafian follicle, then it ready to undergoes that meiosis. Then reduction, that is maturation phase. That means the reduction. It takes place reduction phase. In this one, it is unequal division and all. In meiosis 1, after this meiosis 1, it completed, just now I said. After whenever reached to this one, meiosis 1 it completed. Whenever meiosis 1 completed, what happened? It forms into the secondary oocyte. It forms into the secondary oocyte. Then one polocyte or polar body, otherwise called as polocyte. This is meiosis 1. Or formation of primary oocyte, prophase 1, it arrested until it reaches to the puberty and all. Whenever it reaches to the puberty, it forms into the already primary follicles are there, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle. Then whenever tertiary follicle it completes meiosis 1, then automatically that matured one, it will represent secondary oocyte. Whatever egg cell, this is otherwise we called as secondary oocyte. So this is originally secondary oocyte. Unequal meiosis 1. One is the larger secondary oocyte, another one is the smaller polar body it will be formed. Actually, in human beings, that polar body after completion of meiosis 1, it does not undergo meiosis 2 and all. But rest of the vertebrates may be, but human unable that meiosis 2. Very rarely it undergoes meiosis 2. Commonly it does not. Actually it is not at all functional at all. The functional only secondary oocyte. This secondary oocyte, then it undergoes meiosis 2 and all. It undergoes meiosis 2. When it undergoes meiosis 2, whenever it enters into the spermatozoa, that is very important. Whenever it penetrates to the sperm, whenever it enters into the sperm, then only it complete meiosis 2. Suppose there is no entering of spermatozoa, then during menstrual cycle, what it releases for every monthly and it releases that egg cell, that is nothing but secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte only it releases. It is not completed any type of this, that the completion of these ootids as well as maturation of this one. Whenever entering of sperm, that complete maturation it involves into the fallopian tubes only. After entering of this sperm, then it forms into the ootid and one polar body. This is polar body. This is ootid and all. Ootid. This ootid it matured in fallopian tubes. The ootid, then it matured into the ovum. Matured as a ovum. So there is many times in statement level of questions they ask under. So when that female particular gamete it completes and formation of a mature egg cell and all. Whenever enter into that sperm, then after entering of this sperm, before fertilization, then it releases that complete that specific amount of that matured ovum and all. First ootid it forms, then matured ovum it will be present and all. In this specific ovum, it is the amecythal egg cell and all. In a human being, human egg cell. Human egg cell is the amecythal. human egg cell is the A less than and all. So if you draw that oocyte, that means secondary oocyte related to this one, what are the structure of, if we observe the structure of secondary oocyte, this is the structure of Graafian follicle, secondary oocyte. If you observe secondary oocyte, this is peri-white, that means vitelline membrane is present. What about this one? This is related to vitelline membrane. Vitelline membrane and all. Then this is the nucleus. This is total cytoplasm. Then in this after vitelline membrane it is present that zona pellucida. It is present that related to, this is the zona pellucida. That is, it is very thick and acellular zona pellucida. Outermost layer, one among the granulosa membranes, it will be formed that the cellular related to cellular that corona radiata. This is the cellular, this is the acellular, both are thickness and all. This is the structure of secondary oocyte. In secondary oocyte, it covered with primary, that means vitelline membrane, perivitelline space, inside that the nucleus, cytoplasm, zona pellucida, very thick and acellular. Beyond this one, that corona radiata related to cellular and all. So whenever entering of that spore, then ready to separate, ready to mature, ready to completion of meiosis II cell division. What type of meiosis cell II division? Here, whenever reach and here it will be present. Whenever enter into the spore, that M phase promoting factor, anaphase promoting complex. Whenever enter into the spore, into the secondary oocyte, then with the help of spore, it stimulates M phase promoting factor, anaphase promoting complex. That is M phase promoting factor, then anaphase promoting complex. With the help of these two, it divides it completely. So in this oogenesis, how many number of polar bodies are formed? 2 or 3 polar bodies are formed. If it is meiosis II cell division takes place, one first polar body, again it will be 2, another one, either 2 or 3. How many functional egg cells are formed? So in female oogenesis, finally one oogonium, it develops after completion of maturation and only one that functional egg cell is formed. Whereas in spermatozoans, all four, one spermatogonium, it develops, all 4 functional haploid cells are formed. Here, what is the lifespan of the egg cell? And the lifespan of egg cell, it is present to 24 hours or maximum 48 hours. Normally it is the 24 hours. So, one female organism, in its completion of the reproductive life cycle, it releases total 450 ovas. It releases 450 ovas are released. In this one, already in this ovary, if we observe into the ovary, here it is recorded as primary follicle related to secondary follicle and related to tertiary follicle, just now I said, which are related to this one. Then matured follicle, Graafian follicle. This is whenever ruptured follicle, secondary oocyte, this is the ruptured, this is the Graafian, this is the tertiary, this is the primary follicle. After ruptured follicle, The particular part we call as corpus luteum. This is the structure of ovary. If you observe, many times diagrammatically they represented. What is the name of this structure? Primary follicle. This is the secondary growth and development. Then tertiary. In tertiary also, due to formation of that granulosa membranes along with the atrium. Then antrum it will be formed. Then it is a completely mature follicle. That means Graafian follicle. In this Graafian follicle, then it ruptured. This is the rupturing of Graafian follicle. This is the secondary oocyte. That is very important. What it releases after rupturing of Graafian follicle, secondary oocyte. What we call ruptured follicle? Corpus luteum. Actually, corpus heterogeneous as well as luteum. Lutein, one type of protein is present. Why? Because then after this one it releases very important exam point of view, which part of the ovary act as a temporary endocrine gland. Corpus luteum act as a temporary endocrine gland because it secretes a hormone. What is the name of the hormone? Progesterone. Apart from this one, relaxin. Whenever fertilization takes place, this corpus luteum will be persistent up to 9 months after completion of pregnancy. Suppose if it is not takes place fertilization, then it degenerates within a couple of days. It is degenerated one we call as corpus albicans. Corpus luteum, it is growth and development, degenerated corpus luteum. Then again it will start one more cyclic process. Okay, this is related to oogenesis process. Already we said the what type of hormones, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, act as an important role. So in this one, remember which one we call as the mature follicle. Which one releases from mature follicle? What is the temporary endocrine gland which act as in this particular oogenesis process and all. Then what type of hormone it secretes and all. So all these parts, which is the longest period, either multiplication, growth phase and maturation. Actually related to growth phase will be longest period. Okay. Remaining part we discuss in next week.